Good evening, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City. This is John Massengale. I'm sitting in the studio with Jonathan Green. Les Kaiser has the night off. Jonathan, how about that Indycar at Detroit? Amazing weekend. It was a lot of fun racing, wasn't it?
Belle Isle never disappoints, and it didn't this weekend. A good doubleheader, some great racing on a street circuit that's as narrow as you like, but it really produced some excellent racing.
And man, was it bumpy. Well, we're going to talk all about IndyCar. We're going to talk a little Formula One. And speaking of IndyCar, our guest tonight is leading the Indy Lights Championship. Linus Lundquist is going to join us here in a few minutes.
Well, remember we had David Malukas, who was leading it last week. Yeah. That's how close it's getting.
We better not tell Linus that. Yeah. But yeah, the championship is super close. And Kyle Kirkwood, man, wasn't he impressive today?
Double win for him.
This weekend,
I'm going to talk to him this week as well. But it's now a three-way battle at the front there. There's really nothing between them. And there's still a long way to go in this. But a big change around with a double win for Kirkwood and more consistency from Linus. So great.
Yeah, we're going to talk all about Indy here in a minute. We're also going to talk some Formula One, talk more about the potential doubleheader here at Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, it's got some legs, right?
This has some traction, as they say.
As they say.
Because Bobby Epstein is the chairman and CEO of COTA. He spoke with us live last week on our national Formula One show, but he also has been speaking to some of the other press, and he's been talking about all sorts of things. And so we're going to talk all about that. And there's some more F1 news. Speaking of Americans in F1, Gene Haas came out and is talking American drivers again. You know what? We're not going to talk about it now, but I'm kind of tired of him talking about American drivers. I'm ready for him to put his money where his mouth is. We're going to talk all about that.
All right.
And Kevin Magnussen had a good weekend.
Winner.
Yeah, had a big weekend. So we're going to talk about that too. But let's start off with IndyCar in Detroit, because like you said, it was a fantastic, all weekend, 2 races, the Dual at Detroit.
Yeah, and we had a first-time winner, which was absolutely devastating. Will Power totally deserved to win the race, but sadly, it's been an issue a couple of times. It happened in the 500, but basically the heat was such that they had this stoppage, and his ECU, I think, overheated.
That's what it was.
And they had to go and get another one. The car wouldn't start.
Yeah, the guy was running down the pit lane with a new ECU, but didn't get there, couldn't get it all working. But yeah, so he did not.
But the good news was our friend to the show, Marcus Ericsson, a guy we followed for many a year when he was in Formula One and now Indy. He's been on the show several times. And in fact, I'm going to talk to him this week. I'm delighted for him. First win in Indy and the first win in a single-seater car for almost a decade.
What was it, GP2?
GP2, yeah. So, you've got to, it's one thing to dedicate yourself to your sport and trying to get into Formula One, but when you're a winner, because you have to be, or at least dedicated to it, when you don't win, it can be soul-destroying. We heard it from Rossi back in the day, and now look at him. I feel that guys like Rosenquist, guys like, look at Linus. He's just come off winning the British Championship. Then
because he'd won a race.
And in the words of my surrogate father, not my actual father, but if you ain't first, you're last, son.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, there was a fantastic weekend. In Indy and Detroit. But man, watching those guys go over the bumps all weekend,
man, that's tough.
That looks just
Did you
brutal.
hear Rossi in one of the stops? Rossi, they were like, "Oh, get me water, get me a fan, get me anything." He goes, "No, get me duct tape. I gotta, my thumb is falling off here."
Yeah, because he'd had a blister he'd formed on his hand. Yeah. From all the bumps, yanking the steering wheel left and right.
Well, the Belle Isle doesn't get used. It's a unique race for lots of reasons. I've been to it, and it's a heck of a circuit because you go off Detroit Island and you go into this park, and when you get to the park, the next thing is Canada. So it's really quite a unique place, and of course it's the home of Chevy. It's the home, it's where they want to win. And Roger Penske has been a huge. In fact, if it weren't for Roger Penske making it happen, Belle Isle would never happen. So he's managed to keep it going. But it's a park. It's a beautiful park, an historic park with fountains and all the rest of it, and they jump in them at the end of it. But it doesn't get used to go racing ever. Except for this race weekend. So you can imagine how tough it is to set up for.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that because they don't do it. They don't use it for anything. No. I mean, Indy Lights, of course, but nothing else.
That one weekend a year is what I'm getting at. Yeah. There's no other events.
Yeah. So. And it does the venue with the uniqueness of the circuit and the bumps and everything make it really hard for the drivers. They all talked about how hard it is to learn Yeah. Like any time, first-time drivers are there were at a massive disadvantage.
I was really enjoying Saturday's race. There was a race Saturday, a race Sunday, and Dixon was on great form. And they did a lot of onboard time with Dixon. And my word, every corner is blind. And I kept thinking to myself, I'll get the rhythm of this in a minute. You know how you kind of like watch circuit, you go, I know where I am now.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I've been there.
Yeah, what about the rest of us? I was the same way all weekend. Even after watching hours of it, I was like, I don't know where I'm at when I'm looking at it.
Well, we'll ask Linus about it because he's had a good run at it. So,
well, we got to talk about Felix Rosenqvist.
Felix Rosenqvist, yeah.
Man, when he hit the wall, did you see what happened where his throttle stuck open?
Yeah, and what's interesting is, I don't know if you heard, but even Jimmy Johnson had a similar situation where his throttle sensor had a problem. So that...
Maybe the bumps.
Yes, actually, maybe. But yes, it was very scary. He was turning right. He was on the brakes, and suddenly the car accelerated forward and literally took a concrete barrier out. Luckily for him, I don't know how bad his injuries are, but I don't think he's been hurt badly or anything.
Yeah, the doctor's reports right after the accident, when they took him to the hospital, saying there was at no moment was he unconscious, no moment were any limbs that he couldn't function with or anything, but that was a huge crash.
And serious crash.
We don't get the G meters like we do in Formula One, but I mean, when he hit the concrete, those barriers, he moved the barriers and broke the iron that connects the barriers.
Huge impact.
Yeah, that was a massive, massive collision. So that was a huge deal. But today, the race award, taking that win, he became the first two-time winner all season. We had 7 different winners in 7 different races till today.
Well, I'm going to stick my neck out here. That is the best 7 laps of racing I've seen in the last 2 years, without a doubt. Well, it was phenomenal.
I'm not going to argue. It was fantastic.
The guy goes from, I think it was 6th or 7th at the restart. He'd overtaken 2 cars within the first 3 corners, and he was making easy work of the likes of Palou, leading the championship, Newgarden, former champion.
Yeah.
I mean, and within a matter, and Herta, who had led for most of it. I mean, incredible run to the front and so aggressive, really, really impressive.
Yeah, and Newgarden, of course, had his tires fall off that cliff they talk about with those red sticker tires with, 2 laps to go, 3 laps to go. And... Lee Diffie and the boys were talking about what a great job Newgarden did just to stay in second, because they say literally a cliff. The tires are doing great, and all of a sudden they're just gone, and he had no grip at all.
Yeah, I felt for both Colton Herta and for Joseph Newgarden because, he'd done everything right, but he just couldn't buy a win,
Yeah, Newgarden said, I was reading a report, I put it in here, it said he was coming like a freight train. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I just couldn't do anything. I had so much wheel spin. My rear tires were shot to death. In the last 10 laps, he said, he was trying to be aggressive, and the restarts didn't help you. None of it played into his favor, he said. But man, it was so much fun to watch Ward do that and come up through that.
I tell you, 7 different winners. I mean, in Indy this year, it's phenomenal. And, I know we talk Formula One a lot, and, well, we should, and it's a good year, too.
Yeah.
We really do have finally a competitive championship in Formula One. But Indy has just, over the last 5 years, to me anyway, with its talent, its internationalism, and its sheer pace and excitement, has just got better and better.
I love the way that both series are not afraid to embrace the other.
Yeah.
They've both been talking about each other. Now we've had all the drivers going back and forth. And you got to look at how these F1 drivers, like Marcus Ericsson, who won, and Romain Grosjean, and I just love seeing the fact that the level of talent in IndyCar is comparable. I mean, because Ericsson's been there a while now. Rossi's been there a while now, so those what I'm getting at is the drivers in IndyCar could compete in Formula One, some of them.
Well, yeah, and that's my point, and that's how it should be, and how it used to be. The Indy 500 used to be full of Graham Hills and Jim Clarks and people who were racing on the Formula One scene. And I do think this embrace by Liberty has helped to say, look, we're not the enemy of Indy, and goes both ways. And I think people like Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta could get a run in Formula One if the stars align.
Well, we got a lot more to talk about this. In fact, I want to talk about Romain Grosjean's fire incident in IndyCar.
Poor lad.
You don't even want to say those 2 words together. But
no.
But we're going to go to break, and then we're going to have our guest, Linus Lundquist from Indy Lights, the leading in Indy Lights after the break. You're listening to Speed City, live from Austin, Texas, back after a quick break.
No, I'm not cheating. I'm going.
Hi, Brendan Hartley. This is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to the show. We are excited. We have on the line, our next guest is leading the Indy Lights Championship and has been on the show before, but we're really excited to have him back. Linus Lundquist. Linus, welcome back to Speed City.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, what a weekend. I know you wanted more, but hey, we'll take the championship lead, won't we? That's happy, happy, happy.
Yes, exactly right. I mean, like I say, it was an incredible weekend. I think, race 2, obviously we wanted that win very, very badly, but we just didn't have the speed, I think, in race 2. So all credits to Kyle. But overall, looking at the weekend, it was a very solid one with good points, and obviously getting the championship lead by 1 point. Maybe it isn't much, but still a championship lead.
Yeah, no question, but it's by 1 point as well. And Kyle Kirkwood, obviously, with those 2 wins, has put himself also in that hunt. So you guys have got a heck of a battle on.
Yeah, I know. The top 3, I think we've showed on quite early on that, it seems to be a fight within the 3 of us, which is cool, and it really shows that you really and then it was just obviously in qualifying, guns out, trying to get a lap together, but it was tough physically as well in the race, because at least on day 1 it was so warm as well, and at least that usually gets to me being from Sweden. I'm not really used to the warmth yet, so whenever the temperature rises, I tend to sweat a bit more.
Hey, yeah. Speaking of being from Sweden, did you get to run into Marcus Ericsson after his race, after winning his first race in a long time?
Yeah, no, I didn't get to run into him, but I was very, very happy for him. Like he said himself, like the first win in, I think it was like 9 or 10 years. So very, very happy for him that he managed to get the result. And I think it showed even the pace that he had today. Obviously qualifying wasn't that good for him, but I think coming from, I think it was P22 to P9, I think it showed that they had some really good speed this weekend.
Now, listen, listeners, I'm going to pause for a second and say one of the reasons, well, there's 2 reasons we've got Linus on this weekend, is that he is now leading the Indy Lights Championship. But he's a friend of the show. He's been on before. He absolutely trounced everybody in the FR Championship last year, winning every one, I think, but 1 race. And you saw Marcus Ericsson win this weekend. And I'm sure a few of you went, I don't know much about this guy. Well, that's why Speed City is introducing you to the man born March 26, 1999, from Stockholm in Sweden. His name is Linus Lundquist. Remember it, because he's going to pop up at an Indy race and win soon.
Yeah, well, I hope sure you're right. And that is my target. Obviously, full focus on this year and win this championship to start off with. But obviously, the target is IndyCar and to win races and championships there. So hopefully in not a so distant future, you'll see me guys there.
Listen, Linus, I got a question about the difference, though, because like you said, you had a heck of a season, your first one in America last year, where you did dominate. What's been the difference between this and the Indy Lights? I mean, clearly it's competitive, but what's the major difference for those that don't know?
I think the biggest difference, there are 2 things. Obviously, the car is very, very different. We got so much more downforce in this car and so much more power that it is a bit tricky to drive. But secondly, the way you drive the car, just technically with driving style. In the old car, in the FR car, you had to be very gentle and precise with everything. Whilst in the Lights car, it's more about get in, drive the wheels of it. If you have a moment or 2 or oversteer, you almost need that to be able to be quick. So yeah, it took a while to get used to and actually change a bit of my driving style. But I think as the season goes on and the more time I get in the car, the more comfortable I'm going to get. So hopefully, I can pick up the pace now in the second half of the season.
Linus, we were talking about, before you came on, we were talking about Rosenqvist's big crash, and what was everybody saying in the paddock around, up there after that? Because it was really scary to watch on television.
Yeah, tell me about it. It had me very worried for a long time before we heard anything. And I think from any driver's point of view, it's a nightmare. Either like when you have no way of stopping the car, and that moment of realization, like I'm gonna hit the wall, and at this speed, you never know what's gonna happen. I think we've seen that, previously as well. You never really know what's gonna happen or the outcome gonna go out of this one. So to be able to hear that he was, during the circumstances, okay, I think it was just a relief for everyone. And I was with my team at the time going through some data and everything, and we had a look and we saw the crash. So we all realized that this is bad. So everybody sort of took a step back and obviously respected that, times are rough and we're all in this together. And you really feel that when something like that happens, the motorsport community really shines through, which is good to see. And as well, like COTA winning the race today, dedicating the victory for Felix, I think it shows that we're all in this together.
Yeah, that was pretty cool when he did that. I want to ask you a little bit of I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when I think of, it almost looked like he didn't even have brakes at all. It was almost like the throttle stuck and had no brakes, because I know that, even a high-performance road car, if you hit the throttle and the brakes at the same time, you will slow down. But, man, he was accelerating like just rapidly towards the wall. I don't know, Linus, do you think that the brakes can normally, like in a street car, overpower the engine? But I don't know if that's even a question for you. But
yes, I don't know the details of it, but I think you can see from the onboard video, obviously he downshifted and then he stayed on the limiter until he hit the wall. I don't know exactly what happened, but I think it clearly shows that the car did not stop. And so I don't know if the throttle got stuck open or the brakes did not work, but either way, it was super scary to watch.
So, Linus, looking ahead for the rest of the season, you're leading now, but it's only a point, so you've got to kind of look at the tracks you're going to. But some of them I know you've been to, like Mid-Ohio, Road America, but I'm looking ahead, and one stands out for me is Madison, because it's an oval. How do you feel about taking on an oval? And maybe another chat to Marcus might be in order.
Yeah, I mean, ask me in what is it, a month and a half, and I'll tell you how I feel about it. But it's definitely, and I think looking into the season as well, I realized this is going to be my biggest challenge for this year is going to be the oval. And I mean, these cars have so much power, and the speeds that we're going to get, even around Gateway, I think it's going to be pretty incredible. So, I'll take it step by step, and a bit how I approach like Detroit weekend, just get your laps in and get comfortable, and then work with the car and work with yourself, and just do your best. And it is a very long championship, so as long as you score some good points, then we should be in the fight for a title. But yeah, I'm going in there a bit more humble than I think I would be going in at, say, Road America next weekend, for example.
Hey, Linus, what about this? I mean, with your record in the last couple of years, winning BRDC and then just dominating last year in Formula Regionals, the F3, and now leading the championship now, I automatically think what Jonathan was saying earlier about getting into an Indy car and winning a race. But, I mean, how quickly do you think that could happen? I know that's a tough question to ask, but, I mean, do you think it could happen as soon as next year?
I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, that is my target, to be on the Indycar next year. And I think, obviously, I got this year to prove myself that I should be on the grid next year. And the best way of doing that is to win a championship. So that is what I'm focused on this year, and hopefully be as prepared as you possibly could be for IndyCar, because I don't think you can really understand what it will be like until you actually get into a car and realize the speed. And you look at the drivers that are in that championship this year, and I think Marcus said it in one of the interviews as well. It's like, there are probably like 18 or even 20 guys on the grid that could win a race. And I think it just shows that the competitiveness of that series. So it would be very incredible to be on that grid, and hopefully, can be one of those guys as well.
I mean, besides performing on the track, how do you go about it? Do you have management, or do you talk to the team managers yourself? I mean, how do you go about, I mean, they can see what you're doing, so they're going to be interested in you, but how do you kind of put yourself out there?
Now, I think there's obviously a mix. Obviously, I want the results to speak for themselves, if you put it that way, because I want a team to be interested in me because of my speed or because I'm winning races and championships.
Yeah.
And I don't really have the funding or the budget to come in with a big sponsor. So I just trying to focus on the results, and then hope that the big IndyCar teams, they're looking for a driver that can win races, and hopefully I'm that guy.
Now, listen, here's the real burning question, the important one. How is your number one fan? Because not many people will know this, but I stood next to your number one fan for most of last season. And I just want to know how she is. I miss her. And this is his sister I'm talking about.
Okay.
She was like, she was as though she was at a One Direction concert throughout most of the race. And Linus doesn't know this because he wouldn't have seen her while he was racing. But I was there. How is she?
She's very well. It's so funny you mentioned her because she was actually at Detroit, and she's actually here with me right now.
I bet she's giggling away, right?
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. She was actually in Detroit, and I think last year she was so happy to come some of the races, but this year she's so determined to come at every one, especially now when the championship is looking so tightly. She's like, I can't miss any race now.
I don't want to cost you a lot of money, but she's a good omen, so I think you're going to have to take her to the rest of the season now.
Yeah, I think so too.
Linus, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue to ask you about your weekend, but we're going to also get your take on Formula One too. So stick with us through the break. You're listening to Speed City live from Austin, back after these messages.
Hi, this is Bob Varsha, commentator for Sports Cars, Barrett-Jackson, Collector Car Auctions, and more. You're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
And if you want to hear more from Bob Varsha, tune in next weekend to our Formula One show. We're doing the pre-race and post-race all season long on national radio, so go to our website, speedcitybroadcast.com, and check us out. But Jonathan, what do you want to go to next for Linus Lundquist, our guest, the leader in the Indy Lights Championship?
Well, I wonder, I don't know, Linus, I know you, like most drivers, keep a rough eye. Talking of sort of the Scandinavian world, it's great to see Kevin Magnussen winning a race and Marcus Ericsson winning a race. It's great to see that, you guys are making a name for yourselves over here. What's the feeling back home in Sweden? Are you getting the coverage and getting the notoriety you want?
Yeah, I like to say so, and I'm super happy and thankful for the attention that I'm getting back in Sweden, and it's good to see as well. It's both from the media, but also I see a lot of people following along and think this is as much fun as I do, which is cool to see that they follow along, and hopefully we got 3 Swedes in IndyCar next year.
Yeah, no kidding. So how do you feel about the year ahead? You mentioned the, obviously the oval is going to be a vault into the unknown somewhat. But do you feel confident? I mean, Road America, Mid-Ohio, these are good road courses that, if I look at your career, you should be confident.
Yeah, I think the only place that I've been to before, or at least raced at, is obviously Mid-Ohio. And one of the other ones was Barber, and Barber was kind to me. So yeah. I'm hoping that Mid-Ohio would be the same. But I'm excited for all of it, man. The tracks that we go to this year are pretty awesome. I think the 3 tracks were always going to be a bit tricky. I think especially maybe St. Pete, because I hadn't been there before, well, most of the grid had. Detroit was a bit of an unknown because nobody had been there. But Road America next weekend, it's going to be exciting, that's for sure, because it's one of the places that when you come here to America, it's one place where you really hear lots about. It's the one place where it's good fun.
You were talking earlier about the possibility of getting to Indy next year, and you said 18 to 20 drivers that could win on any given Sunday or Saturday. But Jonathan and I were commenting on this before we went on the air about looking at Scott Dixon, and he's just amazing to watch. But now all these young drivers, it's a nice time to be coming up into IndyCar because there are so many young drivers. And I think the teams are seeing that and going, wait a minute, we've got all these young, Pat O'Ward, Palau, all these guys, and Colton Herta. It's a good time to be moving up in IndyCar.
Yeah, I'd like to think so as well. And it's good to see the youngsters really showing that, that you don't need tons of experience to be up and fight for wins, which is, I think, good for all the young drivers coming up, for the teams to have a look around and see that, you can bring a young guy on and be able to fight for podiums and wins almost straight away. Because I think right now we got Pato leading the championship and Palou in second. So,
Yeah.
it really shows that, the young guns are really coming through.
We've talked about this before, Linus, but I really do feel, and you just mentioned two of them in Pato, being from Mexico and Alex from Spain, yourself from Sweden, obviously Marcus now winning, Grosjean just arriving here this year, Magnussen and so on. American motorsport is now becoming a breeding ground for real international talent. You're one of those guys that have opted to come here. Can you see more and more people getting interested, if not for one reason only, that if you are a winner, you do literally, and Kyle Kirkwood is the proof of it, can get enough money to go all the way to Indy?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think more and more people realize this, especially like myself. I stayed in Europe for a long time and, tried to have a go at it, but realized that the budgets that needed to reach the top, it's for most people unreachable. And that is why America is so great, is that you really reward a winner. And like I say, I think Kyle showed it, and with me as well, without the scholarship from Honda and HPD, I would not be where I am today. So, I got to say a massive thank you and a shout out to them. And hopefully we can make something happen in the future as well. But I think we've seen now over, like you say, with the drivers we have in IndyCar, but also in Indy Lights and Indy Pro 2000 and even USF, you see people coming through from Europe and trying to make it happen here in the US.
Well, let me ask you about what people in Sweden think of American motorsports, because there's been 10 or 11 drivers in Formula One, and do they look at Indy and American motorsports? There's a little bit of snobbery in F1 towards Indy and American motorsports in the past. I think that's less than it was, but how do they look at American motorsports in general?
Now, I think they're very positive again, towards American motorsport. I think a lot of it has to do with obviously the success we've had with some other Swedish driver like Kenny Bräck, obviously winning the championship in the Indy 500. That brought a lot of attention to it back in Sweden.
Stefan,
but just the last like 2-3 years, obviously with Felix and Marcus, obviously Felix winning a race last year and Marcus winning a race now, I think it all helps, and obviously just bringing attention to it and making people, I think especially for Marcus, obviously being 5 years in F1 and never really had a chance to even, struggle to fight for the points, and now seeing him, fight for wins and getting a win, I think it just makes those Swedish people very, very happy.
Mm. Yeah, looking ahead, before I put you on the spot, do you follow Formula One?
Yes, I do.
I guess a more general question to ask you is, though, who's impressing you this year? Because for the first time in several years, we've got the likes of Lando, Perez, Ocon, obviously Verstappen and Hamilton and Bottas, but we've got, on any given day, there are several drivers now capable. Who's impressed you?
I think two drivers that have impressed me has been Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, because that's obviously Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, those people we expect to do well, even Perez to an extent. Like we've seen what they can do. So people that has surprised me or, done better than maybe I would have thought was Sainz and Norris. And Norris because of the way that he's really outpaced Daniel Ricciardo, who we know is very, very fast. So very impressed by that. And also Carlos Sainz getting seated into that Ferrari extremely well. Obviously still Leclerc having the edge, but I mean, he's showing himself to be, maybe not a contender, but, he can be right up there, like P2 in Monaco and having the pace to fight for podiums in almost every race. I got to say, I'm impressed by that.
I want to ask you another Formula One question. It kind of harkens back to what we're just talking about how different drivers from the different countries, but what about Gene Haas saying they've said from day one they're going to look at American drivers. They keep talking about American drivers. It was just a story on F1.com about Gene Haas talking about American drivers, but I have been an unabashed fan of the American Haas F1 team, a big cheerleader, but I'm kind of growing tired of them saying that they're going to do this and haven't really given anybody a second look. I mean, wouldn't you be frustrated if you were an American driver and they keep saying all this? And there's, you got Logan Sargent, and Pietro Fittipaldi, who was a champ when he filled in last year after Grosjean. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Linus?
I don't know. I think it's a bit of a tricky position they're in because obviously, like you say, they want to promote the American drivers, but it also, you got to realize it's also a bit of a gamble if you take an American driver that's been through, like, say, the road to Indy or even an IndyCar driver, because the most common way is to go through, obviously, FIA F3 and then FIA F2. And if you look at that way, you got Logan Sargent and obviously Fittipaldi that's done, he's done an F1 race, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But other than those two, I don't know if there's any American drivers with the experience from Europe that can be in contention for an F1 seat at the moment. So I can see the position they're in, but obviously, like I say, when they keep on saying that you want an American driver, then maybe you should look at once or twice and maybe give an IndyCar driver a shot. I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of, things going on behind the scenes that we don't know. There always is. But who knows? Hopefully in the future we can see one, because I definitely think, if you look at the IndyCar paddock, I think there's a couple of guys that would have been, they would have done very well in the F1 grid.
Yeah, I think the truth of the matter is, and I might be sticking my neck out here, but when you look at what Red Bull do and you look at what the juniors do with Alpine and with Ferrari, they dedicate themselves to 15 and 16-year-olds early on. Some of them make it, some of them don't. I look at sort of Liam Lawson in the Red Bull camp at the moment, and Hauger and a few others. If you're going to get Cameron Dass, if you're going to get Logan Sargent, you've got to put them in a junior Formula One program, and that's where perhaps, as Haas established themselves, that's what needs to happen. Is and it could be someone like Linus who could be part of their program because they see his road to the future too. So it doesn't have to be Americans, but it becomes a place where Americans can try to be part of this young Haas junior program is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Linus?
Yeah, I hear you. I just, hands to heart, I think Haas not in a place to have the junior academy right now, because as if we look at it, I mean, you got the Red Bull junior program, which is good. And you got the Alpine and you got the Ferrari. Yep. The Mercedes doesn't really have that many. I mean, McLaren doesn't really have any. So it really shows that, to be able to have a junior program and really bring forward up and coming drivers, you really need to be established and make sure that you have the platform for it. And I don't know if it has it at the moment, but it would be very cool to see them have that in the future. That's for sure.
It's a double-edged sword, as you well know. And I follow the Red Bull Junior program very closely. And sometimes I'm a little critical because they tend to give a lot of hope to a lot of 14 and 15-year-old and their fathers and those that are, invested in them.
The ones that don't have money.
Well, and then you suddenly get Albon and Lawson doing DTM, which is great. But, they want to be in Formula One.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's, like you say, it's always a bit of a double-edged sword. And, I think Red Bull is, they're renowned to be very harsh as well. If you don't perform, you're out. Which I guess in one sense I can almost respect. It's like they want to see results, and if you don't have it, then I'm sorry, you're out. Whilst in some other programs maybe have a bit more patience with drivers. But at the end of the day, we all want drivers that can win races.
Hey, talking about the ladders and stuff, but what about the Indy ladder right now? You got F2000, you got Indy Lights. How good
Pro
is
2000?
Yeah, Pro 2000. How is the ladder? I mean, obviously it's preparing you. You're going to the same circuits, but what about preparing you for doing the things that we were talking about earlier about getting connected with managers and things? Because yes, I know you've got your head down right now, and that's what I would do if I were you. Be the best race driver you can, but do they help you with the other aspects of a racing career? I
don't know. Like I said, this is my first year on the road to Indy as well, so I'm still a little bit new to this. But I'd like to say that they do a great job. Obviously, the first thing is actually racing with IndyCar on their weekends. I think just makes a huge difference because you're there on the same day. So all it takes is you to have a bit of a chat with the guards, and then you can walk into the IndyCar paddock. And who knows? I mean, you can literally just stumble across anyone, really, any team manager. So
I just wear my helmet all weekend. No one would know the difference. And I'd be like, excuse me, I've got to get in my car.
Yeah, a bit of a rush. Please let me through. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, I got to ask you. I ask you this about you are from Sweden, but what do you like about being in America right now besides the racing? What about your personal side?
I think what was really cool is that you say beside racing, but I base a lot of my friend groups from racing, and I think that's one of the coolest things is that like you can have a good group of friends that you actually race against, but you can have a super chill night out or just hang out and talk about whatever. Whilst in Europe, the rivalry and that thing it's a bit harsher. Whilst here in US, it seems like you respect each other. You can race each other hard on track, but when you go off track, we both realize that what, we're a long way from home. We're here chasing our dreams together. We're just gonna have some fun as well.
Well, I know knowing both David, yourself, and Kirk are three of the nicest racing drivers I've ever met. So to see you guys go wheel to wheel, I wonder how you are off track. Is it true still, I think we must Marcus this, that all the Swedes live in the same apartment complex in Indianapolis?
Not true, but very, very close. I'll tell you that much. We're not more than like 5 minutes apart.
That's hilarious.
We're starting to see some of that camaraderie now in Formula One.
They have fondue parties,
Yeah, this is true.
Swedish meatballs. I was trying to think what Swedish
meatball parties. Yeah. But they'll be watching the Euros together.
But it's
pretty much
in Formula One. You're seeing that now because some of the guys, it's not quite so ultra competitive. Like Lando, you can't see Lando just being a complete ass to some of the other drivers. Lando and Charles Leclerc get along.
I thought it was great that Sainz was the first to give him a hug after Monaco. That was great.
Yeah.
And like to say, like it's great to see the drivers in F1, showing a bit of camaraderie and showing that there's more to it than just racing. There's actually things happening off track, and you can be friends. So it's really good to see, and obviously you want to see more of that in the junior categories in Europe as well. But that was one thing that caught me out, last year to start off with. It's just like, oh wow, we can actually be friends off track, and we road trip to the races together, or stay in the same hotel or Airbnb or whatever it might be. So it's cool to see.
Hey, we're almost out of time. We've got time for 2 questions, and one of them.
I know what one of them is.
You know what one of them is, but the other one is. We are here in Austin, and the rumors have started about a doubleheader, 2 Formula One races here in Austin.
He's won twice here.
Yeah, you've won twice. So you've been here. What do you think about a 3-week long almost party with 2 F1 races sandwiched in between all that in Austin, Texas? What do you think?
I mean, that's the best thing I've heard all day, I'd like to say. No, I got to say as well, hands down, Austin is probably one of, if not the best town I've been in the U.S. so far. I mean, the race that we had here last year was so cool, and just the vibe of the whole city was awesome. So I'd love to see F1 do a doubleheader, and if it doesn't clash, I'll definitely be there.
Good.
All right, the last question, and then we're out of time, and that is, we do a Formula One show nationally. We'd love to have you on that show if you're open to coming on sometime.
I'll be more than happy to.
You'd have to get up early, but I'm sure you'll be watching the race anyway. So just come on, either before or after. Probably after, because we can trash Verstappen and whatever else.
Yeah, trash Pirelli maybe a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, Linus Lundquist, thank you very much for coming back on the show. We appreciate it. And
give out your social. Let's get going.
Yeah, what's your social media and all that, so people know how to look for you?
Yeah, please. So if you want to follow me on my Instagram page, which is Linus HF Lundquist.
Photos are excellent, taken by his sister.
Yeah, please. And Facebook is Linus Lundquist Racing, and Twitter is L_Lundquist 76. So all the updates and how my races go, and a bit of off track things as well. You can follow there. So go ahead and do that.
Fans love that stuff. Well, thanks, Linus. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, call us next time you win.
We'll do. We'll talk to you next weekend then.
All right, I like your style.
All right, thanks, Linus.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, thank you. Take it easy.
Bye-bye. All right, well, let's go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little more Formula One. We got NASCAR on the television right now, and we'll try to see what's happening there, but we'll catch you up on
round and round.
All right, you're listening to Speed City. Back after these messages.
Hi, this is Mario Andretti, and this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. I hope you guys like we have these young drivers on the show because we've had, over the years, we've had some drivers, when they were young, you'd never heard of them at the time, like Lando Norris.
Alexander Rossi.
That's right. Alexander was the
our first guest.
He was our very first guest ever.
Hunter Yaney.
Yeah, Connor Daly way back. He was our second
day.
guest, by the way, ever. That was almost 10 years ago.
Mario Andretti.
Mario Andretti, back when he was just a kid.
Well, you see, I reckon there's a future for that guy. Seriously.
Yeah, just keep your eye on him.
If he could just get rid of that passenger, he could be quicker.
That's true. He's got a
I don't know why you would do that.
He's always got a passenger.
I'll tell you what, he's always out front, though, when he does it.
He's got nobody even close to him.
Stop screaming. I'm going as fast as I can.
All right. I have no idea where we were going before that.
We were going back to Formula One. But yes, thank you for Linus. What a great guy.
Yeah.
Follow him. And I tell you what, follow Indy Lights. We've got 2 Americans hunting that Swede down. And he is a determined guy. Just look at his record. He and Malukas knows all about him because he raced against him in FR last year. And of course, that's during the pandemic. So it's, it's all out this year for them to really show themselves. And one of those 3 guys is probably going to be in IndyCar next year. And I hope it's all 3.
And you know what? Just going on the same vein, all of those interviews that we did going back years and years, every single one of them are out there. They're either on our website, on Spotify or iTunes or whatever. Apple Podcasts.
Think about Lando Norris, who's now a superstar in his own right, winning, getting podiums at Monaco. He's on Twitch. He's a superstar. But he could barely run a sentence together when he was 15. And I don't mean that rudely. I mean it because he's a 15-year-old.
I do remember we got you on the show. You were down in...
and I said, I got one.
Yeah, and you said, I think I got the next Lewis Hamilton.
I did, actually. Yes, I did.
This is what you said. And after he was talking
Which is
for a while...
bold talk.
Yeah, but I mean, you can back it up right now, but...
Yep.
Anyway, he was awkward, but he was 15, I think. So yeah. All right,
by the way, I knew Ricciardo when he was 15, and he was just the same.
Just as bad, yeah.
No, he was just the same as he is now.
Oh, he's the same as he is now.
He was just as full of it.
Somebody tweeted at us and said, talking about the doubleheader at COTA, they said, I got an idea. Run one of the races the opposite direction.
Well, I said that, but the trouble with that is, where's the runoff?
Well, yeah, exactly. Hey, we said we wanted excitement, so...
I feel like if you do 2 events, you've got to... I mean, Bobby mentioned it, and if you didn't hear, we had an interview with Bobby Epstein. There's a couple of things that have come out
on our YouTube and everything else.
Yeah, look it up, because if you want to dig down into this story, Bobby made a couple of good comments, which is they say it's between Indianapolis, Roger Penske's Indianapolis, and COTA. But Bobby pointed out that the October date would kind of put Indy out of it for the potential of cold weather, frost even.
Yeah, because they say that the average first date, or it's either the average first date or the earliest first date is prior to. The average is prior to. Thank you, producer.
My average first date's pretty frosty. Oh, no!
Oh, yes.
Mayhem! Yes, it usually ends up in a crash or 2. So that's one thing that came out of it. The other idea was, because Liberty are trying to grow Formula One here, the potential of basically a whole week dedicated to the promotion of that doubleheader, both pre the first one, then all through the week doing events, activations, car manufacturers, Elon Musk, you name it. Can you imagine what Austin could do downtown and putting on a real festival of fun, and then get back to the track on Thursday, and away we go again, and get effectively a really good undercard, which could include FR or Indy Lights or whatever.
Les Kaiser, who's supposed to have the night off and not working,
he's listening.
Is listening to the show, and he said, "How about for the second race? Actually, probably the first race.
Is this the ghost of Les Kaiser? Is he calling in? No. He
says a race in the dark and shorten the course to the Aussie V8 course. You know when they did that here in Austin in 2013 and cut through.
Does he actually mean a race in the dark?
But the problem, exactly. You got to have some headlights or put up some light. But the problem is the lap time would be about 40 seconds or maybe less than that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Or how about a celebrity race where the drivers are the coaches of people like Matthew McConaughey, but we don't use Formula One cars. We use, I don't know, V8 cars.
Yeah.
Midgets.
I want to, a couple topics I want to get in. One of them is a little more serious topic. And that was Romain Grosjean today in IndyCar with the fire when his brakes caught fire.
Man.
It was, you could see it in his body language, is that when that happened, he was frantic to get out of the car. And then and then he ran over, got a fire extinguisher, and then the professionals
Whose job it is
to put out the fire, they came rushing over, and they literally had to almost restrain Grosjean to get him away from that fire, because it was, I mean, he wanted to put those fires out. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little scary to think about all
I'm
that.
sure he's pretty adverse to fires in racing cars these days.
Yes.
Having been in a flaming fireball.
Yeah. Hey, I want anybody who can tweet. He tweets at us during the show. We love that, by the way, at Speedcaster. Paul Bryan. Jonathan, this is for you. Why is America a, quote, breeding ground for international talent? Question mark. So why isn't it viewed by Speedcaster that clearly international drivers are a breeding ground for U.S. series? Hashtag your accent was showing.
No, and he's absolutely right. It's a good way of putting it. And the truth is, I actually think he's right in that more Europeans like Linus are going to wake up to the fact. And in fact, there's two really good, I'll point him to two really good articles on motorsport.com. One by Vettel saying, you've got to cut the costs of
the
junior series because we're killing ourselves. And America is doing it right because Honda, and by the way, shout out to Honda, which Linus said, is paying for this. And they are giving scholarships to Kyle Kirkwood to go all the way through, or anybody who can win. Dakota has been a recipient. Dakota Dickerson has been a recipient. So too is Kyle Kirkwood. And Linus, if he continues to win, will get to Indy without the money. And even Lewis Hamilton was quoted again on motorsport.com saying, F1's becoming a billionaire's boys club. I wouldn't be able to do what I have done. Quite right, Murphy. Even Murphy agrees that is the case. You mention Lewis Hamilton and he barks. It's just a funny thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I was saying, but the bottom line is Lewis Hamilton said he could not do what he did, which is he and his father going karting and then making it all the way.
Yeah. Another story I wanted to get to before, and that is, you remember the rumors? This one is another listener who sent this to us. Kevin Kelly sent this to us, and it's Mazepin. There's all this rumor about Mazepin having to miss some racing.
Yeah, you don't like him either, do you? Yeah, don't say that word. He'll bark again. Mazepin, get it right.
There you go.
Right, Murphy?
There were rumors about him having to not do some Formula One races because he had to go into the Russian army. Well, apparently...
National service.
The national service, yes. Is that like the BBC service, World Service? No.
No, but it is true of some countries.
But he apparently is already doing the required classes that you have to do.
Yeah, he's got gun turrets on his hat.
But apparently that's not going to be a problem, so he's going to be able to finish the season and... No, I'll leave it at that. I'll let you insert your own joke.
You know I'm going to, yeah, exactly. No, yes, national service isn't, I don't know about Russia, to be honest, but there are several countries in Europe anyway, and in Asia. I knew a racing driver who won a championship and couldn't do the last race because he had to do national service, and he's now the fastest tank driver in Singapore.
Yep.
That was a joke. You didn't laugh.
Yes, sorry. I was looking ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
There were 4 first-time winners. I will put that in my notes in IndyCar this year after Ericsson. So it's the 4th first-time winner in IndyCar this year. I thought that was a cool
stat.
think
we're in for a golden era and year. Not that we haven't had one in the last few years, but I think, the old boys, Dixon and the rest, and I include sort of Rossi in that now, are getting a real
So Dixon's only going to win like 2 or 3 more championships, and then we're going to start seeing some?
I think next year they're talking about one hand behind his back, yeah.
Hey, did you see my boys at the Corvette Racing 1-2 at Detroit after, K-Mag won with my favorite name to say in racing, Ringer van der Zander.
Ringer van der Zander.
Yeah, those two. That was very cool to see K-Mag, like you were saying, win a race and in IMSA in the Cadillac.
Yeah. Tough race to go, too. Belle Isle again, for sports cars. Very tough on them. For an hour and 40 minutes. That's not a lot of fun.
What else? What else local stuff besides the double header that we're hoping for at COTA? I don't think there's any more local that we've got.
Look up on our SoundCloud. I'll get it up there. But have a listen to the mayor of Miami Gardens.
Yeah, the mayor of Miami Gardens. We have not. We've put some of the clips in our shows that you can find on YouTube and everywhere else. but we're going to put the full up there. And that's an evergreen between now and next year. It's good stuff.
Le French Grand Prix is a bonus.
That's right. Next Sunday morning.
We should get Eric Bouillet on.
That's a good idea. We had him on.
Yeah, he's great. Very interesting.
Last year.
And those who know Eric Bouillet's name, of course, former head of McLaren, was let go when things were going bad, but he now runs the French Grand Prix. Lovely man. And it's going to be a big weekend for him because, of course, 2 years since the last French Grand Prix.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks to Linus Lundquist for coming on.
Yes.
Go to our website, please. Check us out, speedcitybroadcast.com. Also, go to our YouTube. We need some more followers on YouTube. Give us some likes. Give us some follows. And find our podcasts everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. All right, everybody. Talk to you next Sunday.
Happy trails.